Hello and welcome to the Bulldog Beat basketball radio show. I'm the voice of the Bulldogs, Rob Bentley, alongside Sandy Golston. Episode number 3 on the air here today as we talk about Ferris State men's and women's basketball. A busy week here for the Bulldogs, coming off a split against Roosevelt University on Monday night here at Jim Wink Arena, and gearing up for some big road games here this weekend as the Bulldogs take on Davenport on Thursday night in Caledonia and Grand Valley State on Saturday afternoon.
Well, it's rivalry week, and you look at coming off of Monday, and which kind of kicks off an NBA-like week of basketball. Now the Bulldogs go into some rivalry games, so it doesn't really get any easier because now you're going down to Caledonia to face Davenport on Thursday, women's and men's games, and then you get a day in between, and then you buckle up, head back down, make the trip back to Grand Rapids, and you face Grand Valley down in Allendale. And so obviously Grand Valley women, number 1 team in the nation. And on the men's side, just like with the 2 Davenport games, you're going to expect really tough, close games. And so it's going to be good competition for these 4 games coming up for the men and women.
Obviously, this past weekend, the Bulldogs played the Thursday games against Lake Superior, a big win for the Bulldog women's team. The men's team, unfortunately, fell in that top 15 matchup against a very good Lake State team, but the Bulldogs had Saturday off, so a little more preparation time kind of heading into Monday night's games.
Yeah, I mean, it was really an opportunity, with the schedule, the way it works out with the Monday night game, and Bulldogs getting Saturday and, off, which is kind of awkward and different and weird, however you want to describe it. So a little bit of preparation, if you will, before we get ready for this stretch of games, a big stretch of games, a lot of games coming up here for the players. And so it's going to really stretch them in terms of really staying on top of their books as a student athlete, and then also focusing on the task at hand. And there's some big games coming up, because you think about where we're at. We're into the month of February now, and these games, not that they weren't big in January, not that they weren't big in December, but these games are going to be really huge coming down the stretch. You're playing for GLIAC tournament berth, you're playing for GLIAC tournament seeding, and you're playing also for NCAA tournament seeding as well. So, these are big games coming up.
Of course, a lot of games left still here on the season. The Bulldogs in second place overall, both in men's and women's basketball, but we've got a month or so left here of the regular season, and a lot of room for movement here in the conference standings.
Yeah, there is. And, one thing that we see about the GLIAC in men's and women's basketball that we've seen in other sports as well, there's some really good teams, and there's some really good universities that put forth good athletic departments, good teams that are well coached. And so what you have on both sides is you have room for movement, whether it's at the bottom. Now, is anybody from the bottom going to jump all the way up to the top? No, probably not. Definitely not on the women's side, and probably not on the men's side either. But what happens is that there are a lot of good teams. And so pretty much any game that you step out on the floor, and especially on the women's side, you got to come ready to play, because somebody can get you.
Obviously, we saw that on Monday night. Roosevelt came in. We'll talk more about that game, but Roosevelt came in, had a great game plan, some talented student athletes, and able to knock off the Bulldogs in the women's basketball matchup.
Yeah, I mean, they played a really good game. They competed, and that's what, when you're on the road, you want your team to go out and compete. And then you hope that you're hitting some shots, and you hope that you get a few breaks that go your way, and then you find a way to steal one. And that's unfortunately for the Bulldogs, that's what Roosevelt was able to do. They came in and they played a good road game. They forced some turnovers on us. We missed some shots, and they hit some shots. They hit some big shots. They had some players that hit some big shots. They got some big rebounds. They got some big steals. They got a huge rebound down the stretch, a huge offensive rebound that led to a 3, and kind of changed the complexion of the game down the stretch. And so hats off to Roosevelt. They played a good game, and now it's up to the Bulldogs to kind of take a step back from that and then move forward, because Davenport's coming in here, we're going down to Davenport, and they're going to feel confident playing at home.
Obviously, flipping the script on the men's side, speaking of teams playing a good game, the Ferris State men's team really came out, played an outstanding second half in that ball game, and able to come away with a big win over Roosevelt here as the Bulldogs swept the Lakers in the season series.
Yeah, I mean, the Bulldogs came in, Bulldogs were coming off the loss to Lake Superior State, and so you wonder, how are they going to bounce back from that game? And I thought they bounced back pretty well. I mean, Roosevelt is a team kind of similar to their women's team, that they've got a lot of ball players that can make plays, that can make shots and are athletic, and they had a couple of really strong high-end performances. So the Bulldogs knew that it was going to be a certain type of a test. The Bulldogs bounced back well from the Lake Ferris State loss and really played a pretty solid game down the stretch, especially in the second half. They really came in and kind of turned it on in the second half and pulled away. So really strong home win for the Bulldogs to kick off a big week.
Of course, speaking of a big week, the Bulldogs will be at Davenport, as we mentioned, coming up on Thursday night. Pregame coverage starts 5 p.m. on Sunny 97.3, and, of course, online at ferrisstatebulldogs.com. Women's game will tip off at 5:30 with the men's game at 7:30 as the Bulldogs will take on the Panthers here for the second time this season, and a very tough opponent always is going down to Davenport.
It is. I mean, women's and men's side, but I know on the men's side, if you look at that, I mean, have we ever really had an easy game down there? No. I mean, they're a tough team. They're very well coached, and they scrap and they get after it. They play well in the Davenport Ferris State game. So I would expect nothing different. Davenport played a good game against Ferris State up here. Bulldogs had to really fight and scratch to be able to win that game. And then on the women's side, the women are looking to bounce back from the tough loss to Roosevelt to try to get themselves back on track. And so, it's a rivalry game, so there should be some motivation right there. And you're going on the road nearby. You're going to have some, maybe some fans, some alumni in the Grand Rapids area that maybe will come and show up. But expect Davenport to come out and play hard in that women's game as well.
And, of course, coming up on Saturday, then, the Bulldogs will be at Grand Valley State, a huge challenge for the women's team, taking on the number one team in the country, GVSU, leading the GLIAC by 3 games over Ferris State. And then on the men's side, always a rivalry game, always a great environment. We'll see how it kind of impacts it being an afternoon doubleheader down in Allendale. I think maybe one of the first times we've had that in regular season play that I can remember in the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, I can't remember another one off the top of my head. But it'll be interesting to see what kind of crowd you get for, an afternoon game. But, it's Ferris State and Grand Valley. And so, it's, we talk about in this region, Hope and Calvin, and, they draw big crowds, and Ferris State and Grand Valley draw some good crowds as well. And so I would expect, the games to be pretty well attended, the energy level to be high. In the men's game, it's for sure it's the proverbial throw the records out the window game. They're going to come in, they're going to compete hard. It was a huge battle up here in Big Rapids, and it was a very physical game. It was a hard fought game that came right down to the end. Bulldogs able to win that. On the women's side, it's an uphill challenge. I mean, you're facing the number one team in the nation, and they've been tough. They're really good. They're stacked. They got bigs. They got great guard play. They defend. They score the ball. Tremendous depth. Very well coached team. So it's going to be a huge challenge. But with huge challenges come huge opportunities. And so hopefully the Bulldogs can get through Davenport, get a victory, and take that into Allendale on Saturday.
Right now, you look at it, the first 2 weeks of February here, maybe one of the toughest stretches of the season here for these two teams. Obviously, not only do you have the 3 games this week, you got 2 rivalry games in there this week, but then next week you got the long trip in front of you to the Upper Peninsula, going to the 2 further schools in the UP. We just had the Lake State trip not too long ago, but the trip to Tech and Northern, always a difficult one, especially in some tough weather at times, and obviously against some tough opponents in some tough environments.
Yeah, just that trip to the Sioux, just add a few more hours and head west once you get across the bridge. And so, but it's not really the long trip that gets you. It's that you're playing good teams. Northern and Tech are really good teams. We saw that here in Big Rapids, and some good tough basketball games. And that's coming up. So all the more reason why you want to be playing some good basketball going into that road trip. But we talked about it. The second half of the GLIAC season presented some challenges for our men's and women's teams. It's very road heavy, as we were very home heavy. So the universe balances out a little bit. And so we're going to have to win some road games.
Of course, only 2 home games left on the schedule here for both Ferris State teams. Coming up February 20th and 22nd against Purdue Northwest and Parkside. A lot of events taking place in conjunction with those games. We've got the annual Red Out event in support of Women's Heart Health. It's Friends and Family Weekend, I believe. The Ferris State Pep Band with a special side-by-side event where they're going to have some high school band students that will join them for that Saturday afternoon doubleheader. So just a number of things going on. If that isn't enough, we've got Senior Day as well coming up on the 22nd. So a lot of reasons to come out for those final 2 home games just a couple weeks away.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that we're getting to that point of the season, but that's the way that the schedules work, and that's where we're going. But you mentioned some great promotions, and I was working with Justin over in University Recreation, and we're talking about Family and Friends Weekend, and helping to get out some information about that as well. And that's always a big weekend for our students to bring their family and friends here to campus, and a lot of great activities going on, including the men's and women's basketball games and open skate and comedian, a movie. So a lot of great things going on there. But it's and you think about senior day. I mean, that's always an emotional time to say goodbye, so to speak, to your seniors, and but at the same time to thank them for their contributions to the program and wish them well, and reminding them that they're always going to be a Bulldog.
You mentioned Justin Harden over in UREC, tremendous individual, and he does a great job with that Friends and Family Weekend. It's an event that we've had in the fall in the past with football. I know it's been done in hockey, and this year a little different with basketball being at home, and always a great crowd. A lot of those freshmen especially bring their families here to campus and a chance to come out and see some athletic action. Yeah,
it's awesome. I mean, Justin does such a great job with that, and he's been a huge champion of that event. And you're right. We've had it in conjunction with some different sports at different times of the year. And it just is a very popular event. And I'm glad we're able to keep it going. Glad basketball gets an opportunity to be a part of that. And so, if you're a student here and an opportunity to bring your family here and spend the weekend and get an opportunity to see a little bit more about what Ferris State is offering your son or daughter here on campus, it's just a great thing. And so we're definitely glad for that partnership and that event and the flexibility of that event to move it to different times of the year.
Of course, speaking of basketball and speaking of Justin, I'm over there all the time at the rec center playing a little noon ball. He used to play with us. Used to play a little softball, but we're trying to get him back in the fold on the softball side. But speaking of noon ball, a player that I've had a chance to play with a few times here this year, Mallory McCartney, now an assistant coach for the Bulldogs. Hopefully going to join us here on this week's show to talk about starting her coaching career, and obviously was a tremendous player for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I would love to. Looking forward to hearing from Mallory because, she was one of those players that we always thought of as like a player coach, a coach that was on the floor for the team and that she really knew the game well. And that's what I've heard, from some of the players as I've talked to them, that she's like, she brings a great knowledge and a great perspective to the bench. And so I know Coach Westendorf certainly happy to have her in that program. And of course, her being recently a player, she certainly got a different perspective than maybe what other assistant coaches might have. So definitely looking forward to her insight.
I think the timing really worked out. LaCara Salter, former assistant coach, got a great opportunity at the Division I level at Nebraska Omaha. And they're, I think, having a great season, and obviously left at a tough time. And Mallory was able to kind of step in right away and kind of fill those shoes. And the team has continued playing some great basketball for most of the year.
Yeah, I mean, great opportunity for Karis to be able to take that position with Nebraska Omaha, and I think with the timing of it, it opened up something for Mallory to be able to step in there, and she's really jumped in and just done a great job with this program, jumping in as a rookie assistant coach, and she's got a great head coach to work with, and they're doing some really good things right now. So really excited to hear from her.
Obviously, it's kind of been important to have her. If you're Coach Westendorp, Scott Carlson, a longtime assistant over the past couple of years, has done a great job with the program, and obviously had to step away here for a little while, dealing with some family issues, and hopefully that is all addressed here in the near future. And our thoughts with his family.
Our thoughts are definitely with Coach Carlson and his family, and having Mallory step in there, and it's. She's got some strong shoulders and some big shoulders, and she's had to take that on. And, I think the team has really persevered, not only with their thoughts and their prayers with Coach Carlson and his family, but the Bulldogs have had to endure a number of significant injuries, player injuries over the course of this season. So it just adds to the challenge that our coaches are dealing with, and more significantly that our student athletes are dealing with. And they continue to compete. And, you mentioned it, they're right there in second place. And so they're still playing at a pretty high level.
Obviously, injuries part of the game. We've seen that on the men's basketball side as well, with Donovan Brown-Boyd, Kenny Turner, both out of the lineup. But, when you get injuries like that, it really kind of opens the door for some other players to kind of step up. And we've seen that on the men's basketball side as well.
Yeah, we've seen it on both sides. I think on the men's basketball side, men's basketball team, a little bit more depth right now that they've been able to absorb the loss of two key players in their rotation, which certainly challenged them, but they've had some other players that have really stepped up. And we've seen players that are getting, significantly more minutes that are stepping up. And then we saw Owen Hardy came in on Monday and he made some key plays in that game when he got his opportunity. So that was really great to see. With Coach Westendorp's team, the women's team, they're playing pretty much everybody. And they have the depth that they have, they're utilizing. And so we've seen players really grow and develop, not only in the women's program, but in the men's program as well. And that's a testament to a great culture that the coaches have been able to develop.
We'll be back with more of the Bulldog Beat basketball show presented by Two Hats Ranch after this quick break on the Bulldog Sports Network. And welcome back, everyone, to the Bulldog Beat basketball show presented by Two Hats Ranch. Rob Bentley and Sandy Golston with you as we continue coverage of Ferris State basketball. A huge week for the Bulldogs with games coming up against Davenport, Thursday night action in Caledonia, and, of course, Grand Valley State on Saturday in Allendale. We'll have all the coverage for you on Sunny 97.3. And as we get into the month of February, round 2 here at GLIAC play, which, of course, started with the 2 games against Lake Superior last Thursday. And obviously another challenge taking on these opponents here for the second time in the conference season.
It is. I mean, even before you get through the first go around in the GLIAC, there's not a lot of secrets with these coaches. And first of all, a lot of times you're recruiting the same kids, and you've seen kids come up through systems and watch them grow. And then as the season goes on, you get film, you get more film, you get more film. And then by the time you get to this point, just past the halfway point of the season, you got tons of film, and the opponent's plays about as well as they do, unless they throw some new wrinkles in there. So not a lot of secrets once you get to this point of the season.
Talking about the GLIAC, let's go over the GLIAC basketball standings. We'll start with the men's side, where you've got a close race at the top. Lake Superior and Michigan Tech both tied for first after this past week's action with 10-2 records. Lake Superior 19-3 overall, ranked among the top 15 teams in the country. The Bulldogs actually number 16 this week in the new poll that just came out. Michigan Tech 15-5 on the year, but again 10-2 and tied with Lake State atop the GLIAC. The Bulldogs, though, not out of it, just one game back at 9-3. Ferris State 19-4 overall, and 19 wins right now, leading the region. So Ferris State with a region best 19 wins, which is going to be important as we get later on into the season.
Yeah, it's going to be very important. The Bulldogs have played and they've won some big games over the course of this season so far, and still some more games left to be played. But certainly the Bulldogs are among the teams. Lake Superior State, of course, as well. Michigan Tech. They put themselves in a pretty good position in terms of the early regional picture. But when you look at these standings right now and you see 10-2, 9-3, you're feeling you might feel pretty good. But then you look at 8-4 Northern Michigan right there, Parkside 7-5 right there, Grand Valley, they can get hot. They can make a move. So there's Wayne State as well. There's some teams that feel like if they get hot, they can make a move, because you go down to 5-7, 3-9. I mean, there's a lot of good teams with some talent. We saw Roosevelt. They're at 3-9 in the conference, but they've got some talented players on that team. We've seen Purdue Northwest as well. So there's a lot of talented teams that, even though they might be near the bottom of the conference, Davenport, they still got some really talented teams, and they can get you if you're not playing well.
Of course, the regional rankings will start to come out, I believe, after next week. So we got a couple weeks before those regional rankings come out, I believe, right before those final 2 home games for the Bulldogs. The last 4 or 5 games of the season, we'll start to see the regional rankings come out. But we expect at least a couple of GLIAC teams in there in the top 10 in the region. I think Lake Superior, Ferris State, probably Michigan Tech, and potentially even Northern Michigan all should be in that top 10 in the regional rankings.
I think they are putting themselves in position to be in the hunt. You look at Northern Michigan with an overall record of 14-6, so they are right there at that, maybe the cutoff right there in terms of being in that picture. Because then you go down and then you got teams that are around 500 overall. Their GLIAC marks aren't necessarily that bad, but they're at about 500 overall. We know Parkside, coach would be the first to tell you that's a really good basketball team. They're at 10-10 right now, starting to get themselves healthy. So they could be a dangerous team come tournament time that could be in a position to maybe steal a bid from somebody if they're playing well coming into the tournament.
Of course, a lot could change here in the next 2 weeks with 4 games coming up before those regional rankings. But you look beyond those maybe top 4 teams in the GLIAC, you look at the other 2 leagues in the region, Great Midwest Athletic Conference and the Great Lakes Valley Conference. You got Findlay that's got 1 loss on the year, that being to Ferris State, at least going into this past weekend. Missouri S&T, I think, has got 1 loss on the season. Hillsdale's a very good basketball team, so there's some other quality teams in those 2 leagues. I think maybe top to bottom, the GLIAC right now with a few more teams in that regional picture.
Yeah, and that's the challenge that the GLIAC teams face. And in some of those other leagues in the region, they're pretty top heavy with like a really high end team that's really good, and then maybe not quite as strong. But you look at the GLIAC from top to bottom. You go to last place in the GLIAC, that's a team that you're not taking lightly. That's a team that can come back and get you. So you definitely got to be ready to play every night in the GLIAC. And so if you're one of those GLIAC teams and you're like the 3rd, 4th team in the GLIAC, you got some work to do.
Let's move over to the women's standings and the women's picture before we get into this week's schedule and the recent results here in conference play. Grand Valley State, of course, leads the women's league rankings, also leads the country at 22-1 on the year and 12-0 unbeaten in the GLIAC. Ferris State in second place still, despite the loss to Roosevelt on Monday night. The Bulldogs at 9-3, 3 games back, but of course have a chance against Grand Valley coming up on Saturday in Allendale. You got to like where the Bulldogs are in terms of the overall wins, 15-6, as Ferris State would figure to probably be one of those top 10 teams at least in the region. Northern Michigan, though, right behind the Bulldogs, 8-4 in the GLIAC, tied with Wayne State for 3rd place. The Wildcats 14-6 on the year. That's another team that right now is in the regional mix, and you've got to think Wayne State now has kind of put itself back in position at 13-7. Parkside right behind them at 12-7. So the GLIAC could see some teams right there on the women's side as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at that, there's some teams that are really sneaking up. Parkside is a solid team. Michigan Tech is a solid team as well. And so Saginaw Valley, you go down a little bit deeper, they are a team that is capable. We saw Roosevelt. But when you look at those top 4, we know Wayne State, really good team. They've got some experienced players. They got some talented players, very well-coached team, like all the teams really in the GLIAC for that matter. But then you got Northern Michigan there. Northern, of course, has a win over Ferris State. Bulldogs are going to try to split that series when they head up to Marquette. So there's some good teams out there. When you start to look at the overall records, obviously Grand Valley in the driver's seat right now at 22-1 overall. Bulldogs at 15-6. You start to creep closer to that 20-win mark, and you begin to feel pretty good in terms of what your resume is going to look like. But Northern Michigan right there, 14-6, 13-7 Wayne State, and then 12-7 Parkside. And so there's potential for a lot of movement there. So it's going to be important, for the Bulldogs in particular, to see if you can continue to play at a high level and try to hold on to that position.
A little off topic right here, but speaking of Northern Michigan going up there next week, kind of looking forward to being at Northern Michigan in Marquette, new facility. Obviously, the Vandemat Arena kind of renovated, was a volleyball facility, kind of renovated into a football or a basketball volleyball facility. And that takes them out of the Berry Event Center, which, of course, is the home of the Northern Michigan hockey team. Going to be a different challenge playing up there. We expect with the success they've had in both their men's and women's programs that will be a difficult place to play here over the years.
Yeah, we do. And you and I had a chance to tour the facility a little bit when we were up there. It's just a really, really fine facility. And we ran into Coach Makerzak when we were up there. And they did a really great job with that facility. And I know I would imagine that I talked to one of their coaches, and they were really excited before they moved in, and I can't imagine they are at least as excited now being in there and playing in there, and had a chance to watch a couple of games on Flow Sports, and really just a fine venue for basketball.
Of course, Northern Michigan on tap next week along with Michigan Tech on a long road trip for the Bulldogs. Going over the rest of the women's standings, though, we mentioned Northern Michigan and Wayne State at 8-4. Parkside, a team that was pretty good when the Bulldogs played them, 7-5 at the GLIAC, 12-7 on the year. And then Michigan Tech, we know how good they have been at times, but 6-6 in the GLIAC, 9-11. They're a team that has played some better basketball, though, as of late.
Yeah, and that's what you want to be doing. You want to be trending in the right direction, playing some good basketball, and and there are several teams that fit that bill right now. Wayne State is certainly among them. They are on a nice winning streak right now, so they're playing some good basketball at about the right time of the year for them. And so they are a team that's trending in the right direction, and so that's a team you're certainly keeping your eye on because they do have some good experience. They got some good size inside, some talented guards, like a number of teams around the GLIAC, and that's what makes this race so tough. And you go up and down that list, and you go all the way down to Roosevelt that still has 5 wins in the conference coming in as a first-year team in the league. So it's a tight battle right there in the conference standings.
Of course, I was going to say that Roosevelt, a team that is playing some good basketball. We saw that on Monday night. They've won their last couple games and big win over Ferris State. They've got a talented lineup as well, and not going to be easy no matter how it shakes out when you get into the conference tournament. Grand Valley State is probably the clear-cut favorite, but beyond them, all of these teams capable of really beating each other on any given night.
There's no doubt about it. Grand Valley certainly setting the tone right now. You can see the X by them in the standings. That tells you how well they're doing in terms of the postseason picture right now. So they're doing really well. But I think when you get to the rest of that group and you look at that picture of what the first round, the quarterfinals of the GLIAC tournament would look like, you're going to have a bunch of teams that feel like they have as good a chance as any of the other teams in that group. And so to have a chance to maybe take on Grand Valley if you look at the way things are projecting right now.
Let's take a look at the recent results here in the GLIAC. We'll stick with women's basketball first. Coming off this past weekend, of course, on Thursday night, the Bulldogs were at Lake Superior. Ferris State got a big win over the Lakers in women's basketball, 83-46. It was Michigan Tech defeating Davenport at home in Houghton, 76-66, the final score in that ball game. Grand Valley went on the road to Northern Michigan, big game in the GLIAC standings, and beat the Wildcats by a final score of 74-48. Really kind of separated themselves in the second half of that ball game. Purdue Northwest at home fell to Wayne State, a Wayne State team that put up some points, 88-59 the final. And Parkside, a team that's tough to beat in Kenosha, and they win it over Saginaw Valley, 73-50. Those were the scores from Thursday night in the GLIAC. Of course, on Saturday, it was kind of nice to have a Saturday off away from basketball and just have a chance to kind of scoreboard watch, maybe tune into some games. And obviously all the other teams in the conference were in action. On Saturday was Northern Michigan bouncing back for an 80-41 win over Davenport at home. Grand Valley State completes the UP sweep as they defeat Michigan Tech 69-51. Lake State at home falls to Roosevelt. We'll talk more about them, of course. And Roosevelt wins it 78-65 in the Sioux. Parkside at home, just talked about how good and how tough it is to win at Parkside. They get beat, though, by Wayne State, a Wayne State team that's playing some great basketball, 73-64 the final. And Purdue Northwest at home falls to Saginaw Valley, 71-47. Of course, the Bulldogs had the lone Monday game, Big Monday, and Ferris State falls to Roosevelt, 83-73. The final score, again, just a couple nights ago.
Yeah, just a disappointing loss for the Bulldogs for sure. I mean, 83 points defensively. It's not what the Bulldogs certainly had in mind. But when you look at overall picture, you saw some pretty wide margins in some of the games over the weekend. And so just kind of interesting to see that when you consider that there's so many teams with records that are pretty close to within each other, like 3-4 games of each other. So interesting that there was some wide margins of victory in the last few dates of games.
Well, let's wrap up the men's scores from this past weekend before we get into the upcoming matchups. Of course, we'll have the same matchups for both men's and women's basketball action this coming week. In men's action, of course, last Thursday, top 15 matchup of the country, Lake Superior defeats Ferris State 73-64. Was a great environment up in Sault Ste. Marie, and always a challenge taking on the Lakers. Kind of has really developed into a rivalry game here in the GLIAC, going back to the GLIAC North days before we kind of went back to the one division here in the conference.
Yeah, it's just been a fun rivalry, and I think we talked about it a few times on the air. When you go back to that 2018 men's basketball national championship team from Ferris State, and boy, we had 4 tough games against Lake Superior State. Lakers dealt us our only loss up in the Sioux, and so the Bulldogs won the other 3 matchups. But there were some great matchups, and since then there have been a number of really great matchups. We had 2 great matchups with them this year.
Of course, Ferris State falls in that game. The other games around the league last Thursday was Michigan Tech over Davenport 77-69. Northern Michigan at home defeats Grand Valley State 79-52. Again, we just talked about that new facility at Northern Michigan, and they get a big win at home. Wayne State goes on the road to beat Purdue Northwest in a tight one, 73-69. And Parkside falls at home. Saginaw Valley State pulls off the upset in Wisconsin, 68-65, the final score on Thursday night. Of course, on Saturday with the Bulldogs idle, it was Northern Michigan winning a second straight game at home. They defeat Davenport on the weekend to close it out, 86-57. Michigan Tech gets another win as well, defeating Grand Valley State as the Lakers go 0-2. In the UP, it was Michigan Tech 81-66. Lake State finishes off right where they started the weekend with the win over Ferris State. They roll past Roosevelt 85-66. Parkside over Wayne State 80-63 as they bounce back in Wisconsin. And Saginaw Valley in overtime over Purdue Northwest, a high-scoring game. Not sure there was a lot of defense played there, but the Cardinals win it 103-100.
That's like actually, I was going to say it's like an NBA score. That's actually kind of low scoring for NBA games nowadays. But wow, two teams reaching the century mark in that one.
Of course, Ferris State closes out the weekend on Monday night. The Bulldogs bounce back in a big way. I thought it was a great bounce-back effort from Coach Bronkema and his team as they defeat Roosevelt 96-72. Tyler Hamilton, 21 points. Ethan Erickson, 21 points, was 6 of 11 from the three-point line for Ferris State. And nice to see those guys really get their shots, get their opportunities to score the basketball.
Yeah, they bounce back. And it's not like we played a bad game against Lake Superior State. We played a pretty good game against them, but you go on the road against a team like that's really good, that's a top 10 type team in the nation right now with the way that they're playing. We were right there, and it's just a few plays here and there that kind of made the difference down the stretch in a tightly contested battle. But to your point, Bulldogs do a really good job of bouncing back from that loss, and they came in with a focused approach and really came out and took care of business and finished the first half strong and then really impressive in the second half.
Of course, a 7-point halftime lead. They ballooned that up over 20 points. Those first 5 to 7 or 8 minutes in that second half were critical for the Bulldogs to really put that one away.
Yeah, they did. They really put the hammer down, so to speak, put their foot down on the gas pedal and really took off. And defensively, they were getting it done. They were keeping players in front, challenging shots. They were rebounding the basketball better as the game went on. We saw a lot of guys really get active on the glass, which was really good. And we just saw a lot of just great plays and, just guys that were obviously making great plays. And then guys that kind of slide under the radar, like Jimmy Scholler had just an excellent game and just doing a lot of little things, key offensive rebounds, great passing, tremendous defense. And so lots of contributions to what was a really great bounce back win.
I don't think the experience can be overstated. The Bulldogs have some new faces this year, but obviously some guys that have played a ton of games here over the course of their careers. You look at Jimmy Scholler, he was playing back during the COVID season, I believe, for the Bulldogs. Dang Rang, even before that, of course, has battled through some injuries, I believe in his 6th season here with the Bulldogs. And then you've got guys like Ethan Erickson, Reese Hazelton that have really been regulars here in the playing rotation here over the past 3 or 4 years in their careers.
Yeah, it's incredible because everybody looked at us last year and they're like, man, you guys lost a lot of experience. You got a lot of experience coming back too. And the way that, Coach Bronkema has really developed his program, guys are getting a lot of experience and they're getting some minutes early, and if they earn them, and then they continue to get that experience. And so you hand the baton off to that next group. And we saw the group from last year that made the run to the Elite Eight. They handed the baton off to this group, and this group is they're running a really good race right now.
Of course, Ferris State lost 6 seniors out of that rotation from a year ago that went to the Elite Eight. Now you look at the Bulldogs, a couple of losses they would like to have back here in the recent stretch, but 19-4 overall and well in position here to make another run here, both in the conference and, of course, making the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you're living life right if you look at 19-4 and you can think, man, there's a couple that got away from us, but Bulldogs they've done well, and I'm really impressed with the way that the team bounced back because that was a tough loss to Lake Superior State. A great crowd up there in the Sioux, and the Bulldogs had to battle the whole game. And again, against a great opponent. And the Bulldogs came back, refocused, sharpened up, had a little extra time to prepare, but they were ready to go on Monday night.
think if there's one thing maybe Coach Bronkema would like to have back from that game, he might have wanted to be out there at halftime and take part in the Stomp Like Steve promotion they put on. Of course, Lake State head coach Steve Heading, great guy, and a great relationship between those two other competitors over the course of the game, but obviously a lot of respect for what their programs have been able to do.
Yeah, they both have been able to develop really strong programs and to grow their programs, and there's definitely a lot of respect. But when the clock is ticking, those two guys are as intense as any coach at any level of competition.
Of course, the officials, I think, had their hands full in that game. Some other games over the course of the year as well, but certainly when those two teams get together. Let's take a look at the matchups this week in the GLIAC. It'll be Ferris State again going on the road to Davenport for men's and women's action on Thursday night in Caledonia. Wayne State will play host to Michigan Tech. Northern Michigan visits Saginaw Valley State. Grand Valley playing host to Lake Superior. And Parkside will be at Roosevelt in both men's and women's action. Of course, on Saturday, as we continue the slate, the Bulldogs will be in Allendale to take on Grand Valley State. 1 and 3 p.m. starts on Saturday. You got Davenport playing host to Lake Superior. Northern Michigan will be at Wayne State. Michigan Tech at Saginaw Valley, and Purdue Northwest will be at Parkside. Roosevelt, of course, playing the Monday game as they'll make a short journey down to Hammond, Indiana to face Purdue Northwest. So that might be their shortest. I'm going to guess it's their shortest road trip of the season, going from the Chicago area downtown to Hammond, Indiana.
Hammond, Indiana is practically in the Chicagoland area. So, yeah, you're right. That's probably even shorter than going up to Parkside. So it should be a relatively short trip. We'll see if that develops into something of a rivalry there with Roosevelt and Purdue Northwest. But there's some great matchups. And when you look at the standings on the men's side and the women's side, there are some very impactful games that are going to be taking place Thursday, Saturday, maybe even in the Monday as well.
Of course, we mentioned it during the game the other night. The Bulldogs will be that team playing the Monday games next year. There's a few Thursday Mondays, but most of them Saturday Mondays, especially in the second semester, which is going to be a little unique. The crowd wasn't too bad on Monday night with some of the promotions going on, but we'll see how the Bulldogs are able to draw next year on Monday nights. Of course, they'll be playing some road games on Monday nights as well.
Yeah, I mean, you hope that for the home fans that it'll be something that they'll get accustomed to over the course of the season and kind of make that game theirs and have some great big Monday night crowds. And you and I are from an era when we remember Big Monday on ESPN, and you were watching it, and there were some huge matchups around the country. And so hopefully the Bulldogs will be able to channel that and to have some great crowds on Monday nights.
Of course, that's one of the drawbacks. Adding a school to the conference like Roosevelt, you got an odd number of teams now, which at least in basketball creates a little bit of a challenge in terms of scheduling. You get on the football side, it's a totally different story. You want to have those extra teams to kind of fill out your schedules, but they've been a great addition to the conference so far.
They have, and it's really been fun to watch them come into conference and be competitive early. And, again, we've seen some good coaching from them. We've seen some really good athletes from them as well, and teams that play hard. And so that's what you want to see coming into the conference.
We'll be back with more of the Bulldog Beat Basketball Show presented by Two Hats Ranch after this quick break. And welcome back, everyone, to the Bulldog Beat Basketball Show presented by Two Hats Ranch. Rob Bentley and Sandy Golston with you. And we're joined now by Ferris State University, former women's basketball player, now assistant coach Mallory McCartney. And first of all, Mallory, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
What's it been like for you now being on the coaching staff here this year and having a chance to work with some girls that are your former teammates in a lot of cases?
Yeah, it's different, all in a great way. I would say that the girls make it very easy for me. So I thought maybe the hardest part was going to be coming back, coaching my best friends, and it's actually been the easiest part. I have such a great group. They're all so hardworking, and everything about them makes me want to be better. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been different. Sometimes I still think I'm going to get checked into the game or something, and I have to take a step back, realizing all right, this is a new spot.
For you, looking back at your career, obviously some outstanding memories going to the semifinals a year ago. What are some of the best moments you remember being a player here at Ferris State?
Yeah, I mean, all of them, to be honest, but most of them off the court. I would say we were all so close and still are so close that it's truly so special to be a part of. I know that when I look back at Ferris, I think, yeah, we had some great wins, but the best part was doing it with your best friends. And it sounds so cliche. Most people say that, but I can truly say, these are the girls that are going to be at my wedding one day. These are the girls who like when you want to play for something bigger than yourself, it makes it so much fun. And it was the best time of my life.
What are some things you try to, I guess, pass along to the girls that are on the team now? Things you learned during your career that you feel really, really can help them?
Yeah, I always just tell them not to put so much pressure on yourself. I think that as a student athlete, you have so much going on at all times, whether it's a class, whether it's trying to rush to practice, maybe you had a bad practice. And I just always tell them to have fun with it. I was like, this game is so much fun. It has given us all so much. It's like you don't need the added pressure of like if you miss a shot, it's not the end of the world. So have fun with it. Don't take it for granted because it does run out at a certain time. So as long as you have fun with it, I always say you're going to leave here just so happy.
You know, when you played, we always saw you as being like a coach on the floor. I mean, tell me about that description of you and, you know, maybe how you saw it as a player being a coach on the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at my position, at being the point guard, I definitely had to be. So I always knew every play. I knew where every person had to go versus where maybe in a different position, you'd just be like, all right, here's the play. I go here. And I kind of like, that was my, that was how I took it to the next level. I thought that was my best trait. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't like the biggest, strongest, anything like that. But I always thought like I could think in a different way. And it really has helped translate to like off the court, me being able to coach them because I see the game in like a different way.
What is it like now? Because you're getting film and you're going through film, and is it different going through it as a coach versus as a player?
Yeah, it's very different. I know that I remember being in film rooms as a player thinking like, why are we so mad about this small detail? Like it worked out, we won. And now I'm sitting here like, oh gosh, I had to drive Kurt crazy because now I understand why these small details matter so much. It's more about like the process, how you get there. So even when a play works, you realize like we still have things to like clean up. And it's a zero-sum game a lot of the time, especially in practice. I'll be watching the offense and I'm so happy. And then I'm like, wait a minute, the defense, like something's wrong. So it's very different and it's been very, I don't even know the word. It's been very eye-opening to why the details matter so much versus being a player. It's like, just go out and win.
And then when you were finishing up your career as a player, where was coaching in terms of what you were maybe thinking down the line? I mean, was that something that kind of been in the back of your mind?
Not so much, I wouldn't say as a profession. I did coach a travel team. Like I knew I wanted to be around it and have so much fun with it. All my family always said like, you'd be a great coach, you should do this. And I just never was an option in my head. I was kind of like, I kind of want to see what my degree can get me. I want to do something different. I loved being a player. Don't know if I'd love being a coach. And then this opportunity came knocking and I was obviously very excited. I know Coach K, when she was here, she was sitting there saying like, have you thought about coaching? I'm like, no, I'm out of the basketball world. And she was like, God has a funny way of making things happen. And ever since she said that, and then this opportunity came, I was like, she wasn't lying. Like everything is like meant to be and happens for a reason. So I'm very grateful.
So speaking of Coach K, you've been working with the bigs.
Yeah, a little bit.
So what has that been like for the star point guard to work with the bigs?
Yeah, it's different. They are very strong. I will say I'll get the pad and think like, okay, maybe I'll hit them hard here. And they just dang near knock me over every time. So definitely I'm excited to work with them. I'm excited to go outside of my comfort zone and learn like new footwork, new moves, because obviously I've never had to do that. And they help me out a lot too. They'll sit there and be like, actually, I want to do this. I'm like, absolutely. Like you lead the way. I'm kind of just here to help like take us to the next level too. So
what has it been like for the team? Because you guys have obviously had some injury issues and you guys aren't going to make excuses, for injuries. It's just a part of the game. But what has been the key for the team to continue to stay positive and rally? Because you guys play almost everybody that's on your roster right now. I mean, it's just if you're dressed, there's a good chance you're going to be getting in the game.
Absolutely. Injuries are the worst part about sports. I know everyone always says it, but it's heartbreaking. It really shows like what a team's made of. And I think that we are so used to always battling adversity that we're kind of in the point how you just said, there's no excuses to be made. It's like you can either look at it like, oh, we've had a great year, or it's like, nope, we're going to have an even better year. We're going to figure it out. And again, I'm so proud of the girls because they just have the mentality of like next person up. Like, I will be ready when my number's called, and everyone takes advantage of their opportunity. And I'm so proud of them for that, especially being dealt some injuries that really hurt. And so I'm proud of them. They just keep working. They don't complain, and next person up.
Yeah, because it's impacted different players on the team. Mara coming in as a really talented point guard, and I know it had to be tough on you because she was really looking good before her injury, and now you see her. She's walking around better and better, and she's like she's getting into that frame of mind where she's going to be ready to get back out there when her time is ready.
Yeah, absolutely. We always say something about an injury. It also makes you realize how badly you want to be out there. So it's like it hurts. Everything about it hurts, but then it also like you are itching for that time to come. And Mara, obviously such a special kid. She is the hardest worker. She's always in the weight room doing everything she can, even though with her leg she can't right now. So I'm excited for her. I loved watching her on the court before, and I know she's going to come back even stronger. So it gets me really excited because she motivates me just by what she's doing right now. So it's fun to watch. And same with Kaden. I mean, talk about the two hardest workers. Again, you can either fold after an injury or you can sit there and get better, and that's what both of them are doing. So
yeah, smooth
I'm so
segue.
proud of them.
Smooth segue into the next question I was going to ask you before giving it back to Rob. You and Kaden have been through so much together. I mean, you guys played together for so many years, and how tough has that been for you to see that with her, because she's a player that just really wants to be out there with her teammates.
Absolutely. It is heartbreaking. It's one of those that I would say the hardest part about coaching is my first thought when it happened, I was almost in tears because I'm like, my best friend just like got hurt. And it's hard to separate like what a coach is and what, obviously everyone's heartbroken, but Kaden and I have played against each other in high school and lived together, literally my best friend. And just knowing her, she's obviously done this before, so it's heartbreaking, but that girl is so inspiring with how strong she is that's one person I know she's going to be just fine. She's going to come back stronger. I never know how she does it, but her strength is inspiring to everyone around her and especially to me. So she's going to be good. She's going to be great, and I know it.
Mallory, when you thought about being a coach and taking this position at Ferris State, anything that maybe you thought of and you got here, you get in the position that you realize is kind of totally different than maybe what you expected? Yeah,
definitely. I would say when I first took the job, I thought more about X's and O's or what play is this, what defense we're going to run here. And then I kind of noticed the administrative side of it. So now I'm sitting there like doing scout or trying to do food orders or something, that I went from being the spoiled athlete, right, to then doing it. And I'm like, wow, anytime I got mad, now I understand like it's no one's fault. And obviously everyone in the past has been great and they've helped me out so much. So it's different. I definitely am learning like both the administrative side along with like on a game day what it entails. So different, but in a good way.
There you go.
Obviously, this week, a busy week, a tough loss on Monday night, but obviously a chance to get right back on the court. Two very good opponents in Davenport and Grand Valley. And I know as a player, you got to like weeks like this where you're just kind of going from one practice to a game, and you got to like playing so many games.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's probably a tiring week for the girls, but it's also, to me, it's so exciting because you don't really get 3 games in a week ever. And I know it keeps you focused. And obviously you said tough loss the other night, but at the end of the day, the sun comes back up and you get another opportunity to play. So that's the exciting part. Definitely looking forward. We played 2 great teams and we're excited. We're excited to kind of reprove ourselves and do everything on the court. And it's going to be fun. I'm excited for them.
What have you seen from some of those girls that obviously were on the team last year when you played, but maybe didn't get quite the minutes they're getting right now? Whether it's Mia Riley, Emma, Allie Schultz, whoever it is, maybe just talk about the work they've put in to give themselves an opportunity to compete and be on the floor.
Absolutely. That whole junior class, so you have Elle Irwin, Mia Riley, Allie Schultz, and Emma Skierbeck. They have been the most hardest working class since I was here. And they came in as freshmen. Maybe didn't see the court all the time. Sophomores, same thing. And now seeing them just as starters and thrive in every role they've been given, it shows that your hard work does show. They come in, they're in the gym more than any people I know. They're always trying to get better. They're always asking how to get better. And among that, it's like they're just great people. I could say that about every girl on our team, but they just inspire everyone around them to get better. And that's why the bar for us will never be low. It'll always be set at a standard that we are trying to get better. We're never satisfied with where we are. So I think it's awesome. I think the culture that you walk into is a big part of it. And kind of being able to say we kind of helped build this culture is a really cool feeling, but seeing them take over it is an even better feeling.
What's it kind of been like here over the past, 2-3 years, whatever it is, where you've got both the Ferris State men's and the women's basketball teams highly successful? Obviously, both teams going to the Elite Eight last year. What's it like just knowing the relationship between those two programs and both being right near the top of the league?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we see all the hard work the men put in just as much as we do. And it's a family atmosphere. So when you travel together, obviously you get to know them and you hope, wish and pray for their success just as much as your own. So it's really cool because when you're both so dominant, it makes road trips so much fun. It's like you both know the standards. You both see how hard, you're in the gym at 10 o'clock at night, whatever it is, and you get to go see that pay off for both teams. It's really special, and it's not the most common all the time. So I feel very lucky to have been a part of it. And also everything that the men's team has done and everything that the women's team has done, they've earned and they deserve it because all the work that they put in. So I couldn't be more proud of both sides.
I know you came in obviously before COVID as a student athlete here at Ferris State. Did you ever imagine the success this program would achieve and the wins you would have on the floor coming in?
Definitely. I would say I'm a very competitive person. So anywhere I go, I just knew that I wanted to win and I wanted to make a difference somewhere on and off the court. And so I will say a lot of conversations with my parents, I was always like, we're going to go in, we're going to win. And seeing it again come true and come to light after all the hard work and even the hard years, the COVID year, and then coming back successful. Again, I'm just very grateful. And I knew that this place is always going to be so special, but it's special because of people and how hardworking they are, and it shows for it.
I know, obviously, you guys kind of take it a game at a time now. Coming off a tough loss against Roosevelt, what will it take to come back and hopefully get a win over Davenport to start it off here on Thursday night? Yeah,
absolutely. It's going to take a short memory, number one, and it's also just going to be a lot of hard work. So knowing that maybe one game doesn't define us, but also fix the mistakes you made in it and move on so that team doesn't beat you twice. And especially turning the page to Davenport. We just gotta, everyone, I think I had a text from every player on our team this morning, hey, what time are we in the gym? Can we do this? And that itself, it's gonna start to show how much these girls work, how hard they work, how motivated they are, how inspired they are. It's gonna show in our success in the near future. All these days are gonna add up and matter. So I'm proud of them. Short memory, we gotta move on.
I know, obviously, the focus on Davenport right now, but you get a chance to play Grand Valley State coming up on Saturday. I know as a player, you had to love those games, those rivalry type games against the Lakers.
Oh, absolutely. It is one of the best atmospheres, no matter what. Just when you're in a Ferris jersey playing that other team, it's something else is on the line just because it's a rivalry game. So utmost respect for them. They have a great group. They're so talented, and it's also just fun because when a rivalry game happens, nothing else seems to matter. It's they don't like us, we don't like them, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But utmost respect again for both ways.
Finally here, before we let you go, kind of away from basketball, what are some hobbies? What are some things you like to do when you're not involved on the basketball side and coaching?
Oh, goodness. Honestly, it's going to sound a little lame, but my favorite hobby when I get home, I binge watch every TV show imaginable. So any new show that comes out on Netflix, you can count on me that I've seen it. I rewatch old shows, so I'm a big... as active as I am during the day, once I get home, it is not that. I sit on the couch and I just look forward to what TV show I'm going to watch next.
What's one of those old school ones that you go to?
Oh, One Tree Hill is my probably all-time favorite.
I'm with you on that one.
And I will I've seen it so many times, but it's just a comfort show, so I always turn it back on.
Now, do you have a One Tree Hill jersey?
Oh, I sure do. In a sweatshirt.
I knew it.
I have the Nathan Scott jersey and everything. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Mallory, we appreciate all the time here today, and best of luck to the Bulldogs here against Davenport and Grand Valley State this week.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
We'll be back with more of the Bulldog Beat Basketball Show presented by Two Hats Ranch after this quick break on the Bulldog Sports Network. Welcome back, everyone, to our final segment here of the Bulldog Beat Basketball Show, presented by Two Hats Ranch. Rob Bentley and Sandy Golston with you as we wrap up another episode number 3 here this afternoon, and getting ready for a couple big matchups against Davenport and Grand Valley State this week. Had a great conversation here on the show today with Mallory McCartney, of course, assistant coach for Ferris State and former Bulldog women's basketball standout, led this team to the national semifinals a year ago, and great to really kind of get her perspective on things here on the women's basketball side.
Yeah, just an awesome conversation with Mallory, and she has done an exceptional job of transitioning, from the end of last season to this season, from being star basketball player, leading your team to the Elite Eight in the Final Four, to becoming an an assistant coach, a full-time assistant coach here, and taking on all the responsibilities therein. And she's done a great job. And I think a part of it, and we heard from Mallory, because we talked to her about it, was being a coach on the floor for the Bulldogs throughout her career, and then taking that into the coaching ranks to actually be a coach. And then as you asked her about finding out the other pieces to the puzzle that coaches do that sometimes people from the outside looking in don't necessarily see, but she's handled it all exceptionally well.
Of course, I'll never forget last year, obviously, the Bulldogs get that win in the national quarterfinals. She sprains her ankle in that game. There were some serious questions whether she was going to play or not. And she got out there, played in that national semifinal game, and didn't want to come off the floor.
And played well. I mean, just when you consider the horrific nature of that injury, it was a really painful injury to watch it. By the way, she got fouled on a 3-point shot. She actually hit the shot too. I mean, fantastic shot that she hit, but just really showed her mentality in that game to come back and wanting to be out there to lead her team. And she did not want that game against Tampa to be her last game. She wanted to come out there and leave it all on the floor.
Of course, had a remarkable career, one of the all-time bests here at Ferris State, and now has moved into the coaching ranks. And it's a little different not having her on the court, but still very much a floor-type leader as an assistant coach here in the program. Yeah,
and I think she's going to be valuable to the players, of course, that she played with that are still on the roster. But I think also being able to work with developing some of those young players that are some of them are redshirting, that are going to be really good players in the future, helping to recruit players that are going to be coming in next year that are looking very, very promising, very, very talented. So she is doing some great work right now that's going to benefit this team into the future.
Of course, she's got a tough job as well. Obviously, on the men's side, Coach Broncom, a very intense type of individual, but Coach Westendorp has shown he can be a little intense too at times, and got to keep him under control a little bit on the sidelines.
He is, Coach Westendorp is very, very intense, and you and I have a chance, at each home game. We're right there by the bench, and so we get a chance to hear, if not all of it, most of it. And so, Ferris State is blessed to have obviously two intense coaches, but they're blessed to have two excellent coaches that have done great jobs with their programs. And we know what Bronx in terms of winning that national championship, but he's brought regional championships to Ferris State, and then to see Coach Westendorp bring that first regional championship to the women's basketball program is outstanding.
Gotta love the growth of the women's basketball program, and obviously Mallory was a huge part of that. But you go back to Kendra Foston, who really kind of got it on the right trajectory, got the team to the NCAA tournament when unfortunately the COVID shutdown happened, and then Coach Westendorp's kind of picked up from there and has had some outstanding seasons here leading this program.
Yeah, and we've seen Coach Foston come back a few times, and she was really one of the people that really helped get this thing reestablished. And we are certainly grateful to her and the things that she has done to help this program get back on track. And then Coach Westendorp came in, and just the right person at the right time to take over that program, and he has done some excellent work. And I think there's still more to come with this program.
Of course, we've had a busy week here with National Signing Day involving Ferris State football. The 3-time national champions announcing another outstanding recruiting class this week. A lot of events going on. We got Bulldog softball in Hawaii, men's and women's tennis playing their first home matches this coming weekend. Track and field in action. So a lot going on. Hopefully have a chance to get a couple more guests on next week. The Bulldogs headed next week to the Upper Peninsula to face Michigan Tech in Northern Michigan. But first things first, you got two tough matchups here against two West Michigan rivals. Coach Westendorp mentioned it, I think, in the post-game show the other night. The nice part about it is you get to stay at home, you get to sleep in your own bed, but the Bulldogs will be making those journeys both to Davenport and Grand Valley State this week.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is you get to stay in your own bed, and you're not too far away from home. The tough news is you're playing some good teams. You're playing teams that play well at home, and so that presents some challenges. But where there are challenges, there are also opportunities. And so if the Bulldog basketball teams can have some strong weekends, and they're going to have a chance to maintain pretty solid positions that they put themselves into this point. So definitely looking for some big wins coming up this week to close out what's going to be a big week overall for Ferris State Athletics.
Of course, the GLIAC, never easy to get a win. We saw that the other night with Roosevelt coming in. I know a lot of leagues, a lot of coaches probably say their league is the best, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a better competition, whether it be on the men's side or the women's side, than what we've seen here in terms of really the quality of teams here in the GLIAC this season.
I mean, if you go down really to the bottom of the GLIAC, on men's and women's sides, mostly on the men's side. On the women's side, obviously Grand Valley is kind of separated a little bit in some sense. But, on the men's side, for sure, everybody feels like they can win. On a given night, they feel like they can win, and most of the teams in the GLIAC on a good night feel like they can beat most of the teams in the GLIAC, and so that's what it's like. We see it in football, we see it in volleyball, we see it in pretty much every sport, and so no reason that men's and women's basketball should be any different.
Of course, Ferris State, some high hopes still. We hope to see both teams in the NCAA tournament at the end of the year. But as we get into the month of February, these games are really going to be critical towards achieving some of those goals both teams still have in front of themselves. Yeah,
and you're going to have to win some road games. And we know that that's just the case. I mean, you don't get to the NCAA tournament without being able to win some road games. And so it's going to be important for the Bulldogs to not only focus on protecting their home court, the women and the men, but also being able to get some wins on the road. And so both men's and women's basketball teams are going to have that opportunity on Thursday and on Saturday. And so we'll see how they respond to it. But some big games coming up down the stretch, but that's what you come to the GLIAC for, to play in big games.
Of course, again, Thursday night, tomorrow night, we'll have all the action of Ferris State basketball for you from Caledonia on the campus of Davenport University. The women's game tips off at 5:30, the men at 7:30, with pregame coverage starting at 5 o'clock here on Sunny 97.3 and also on the Bulldog Sports Network at ferrisstatebulldogs.com. Never an easy place to play, but the good news about playing down in Grand Rapids in Caledonia, you get some Bulldog faithful that come out to those games, whether it's at Davenport or at GVSU.
It's funny because we had Mallory on, and I think the regional championship victory for the women's basketball team last year, I think, proves that point that you made. We had a great crowd. Grand Valley had a tremendous crowd as well. Incredible atmosphere. One of the best atmospheres we've called a game in. That was incredible. And so you're right. Going to Davenport, going to Grand Valley, you get a lot of our Bulldogs that are in West Michigan, maybe in the Grand Rapids area of West Michigan, that really come out and support, and some of the Bulldog alums that are maybe on the opposite side of the state, just a kind of a straight shot to come from Lansing, come from Detroit, come over to Grand Rapids. So we definitely expect to see a lot of Bulldogs in the house.
We hope to see the fans there on Thursday night. Of course, Saturday's action, 1 o'clock for the women, 3 o'clock for the men in Allendale at the Grand Valley State Fieldhouse Arena. Pregame coverage starting at 12:30. No hockey on the air this weekend as the Bulldogs are idle after a big sweep over Bemidji State. They'll be back at home next weekend on February 14th and 15th against Lake Superior when the basketball teams head to the Upper Peninsula. The regular season quickly winding down for all three of these programs when you look at hockey and basketball, and obviously just 2 home basketball games left in the regular season. They hope to play well here in February to get a couple postseason games here at home.
Well, it goes fast, and it was a long time ago, but it doesn't seem like that long ago that we were just seeing these winter teams get started and get their seasons going, and here we are now coming down toward the end, and in between the beginning of the winter seasons and the end of the winter seasons, we of course had football national championship, volleyball regional championship, so we had a lot of great things happen. But here we go. We're coming down the stretch run, and so fewer opportunities for Bulldog fans to be able to see the Bulldogs play here in Big Rapids on the hardwood of Wink Arena and on the ice of the Abe Gleben Ice Arena. So get your tickets and come out and support the Bulldogs in these precious few games that we have left at home.
Big thanks go out to all of our advertising partners for making this broadcast possible on the Bulldog Beat Basketball Show, including our presenting sponsor, Two Hats Ranch. Thanks to the president of Ferris State University, Dr. Bill Pink, athletic director Steve Brocklebank, of course, Steve Masters at Sunny 97.3, Brody Kaiser for all his production work as well, and looking forward to watching the Bulldogs back in action here, rivalry week here in the GLIAC.
Yeah, it's just going to be a lot of fun, and we know our fans look forward to it when you play these rivalry games, and of course we've got a name for the rivalry football game with Davenport, and that's just been fantastic. Calder City Classic, so that's been great, and the anchor bone for Grand Valley, and really supposed to be for football, but it seems like it carries over into the other sports as well, just without the trophy. But you don't necessarily need a trophy for that to be a big rivalry anyway, but it's going to be a lot of fun playing your rivals.
For Sandy Golston, I'm Rob Bentley. Have a great week, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to episode number 3 of the Bulldog Beat Basketball Show, presented by Two Hats Ranch.